okay. If people don't know that and they don't understand that and they think that a simple display of unity is going to fix things, that's the problem. That's what we're working so hard to fix. That's what I'm trying to unify with black leaders in the communities to try to fix, and white leaders in the communities to try to fix, because it's not it. I mean, I can come lock arms with you, Brian, all day long. That's not going to fix social injustice. But if people start talking, realize what's going on, there's an exchange of ideals, there's an actual dialogue, and progress can be made. And if it took that photo op, if it took you, Mark, holding hands to do it, great. But that's where we need to go. That's not where we need to be. It's where we need to go. Is all that making sense?
It is, and I totally agree with you, which is why it sparks my outrage, simply because it appears to be just a photo op. Well, case in point, it seemed as if, maybe I'm over-exaggerating, but it seemed as if the act of solidarity, the holding hands, lasted for all of 5 seconds. It seems as if they all walked out there. By the time they got to the middle of the field, they stood there, 1, 2, 3. Okay, everybody say cheese. Okay, let's let go hands and go back to our sideline. That's what it felt like. So in that moment, again, I just want to reiterate, I don't have a problem with everybody wanting to come together, because yes, the situation that we are talking about transcends football. It transcends all sport. This is about humanity, the human race in and of itself, and how we can better understand each other so we can take things to the next level, maybe is a better way to put that. The problem that I'm having is that if you look at that still shot on that day, the only thing that will be said is the thing showed an act of solidarity. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, it's on each and every one of us to want to educate ourselves. Okay, well, why did they do that? But if you look at that still shot, and if you watch SportsCenter, they'll probably show it tonight. The Saints and the Falcons did an act of solidarity. And all you'll see is the guy standing in one big circle, and then that's pretty much the end of it. No one talks about why they did it. And if you just look at that still shot, you can ask yourself a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Well, I know it was Steve Gleason's anniversary of the block punt. I know that part. I know, it's the 10-year anniversary semi of, I guess the dome opening of Katrina. You can put a lot of other things on that moment. You will not. The first thing that won't come to your mind will be anything to do with race relations and how to heal that. I don't know. That to me, that could have. I'm not gonna say that was the wrong thing to do. I'll simply say there had to be a better way to do it.
Yeah. Look, I'm kind of feel like I'm stuck in a hard place here because. And I'm naming names because I'm naming people on Twitter, especially players, who were very outspoken last week. And this is not to dog them in any way. But the reason I'm naming people like Cameron Jordan, like R.J. Harris, who was with the Saints in training camp, and Mark Ingram, is because they spoke out. So I feel like now we have to move past speaking. We have to move towards action. And I realize action isn't going to happen overnight. I realize no matter what we do today or tonight, tomorrow is still going to be a world where social injustice is a thing. But it's a slow progression that we can start and that we can continue working on that others are doing that will fix this problem. I mean, we don't have to fix social injustice in America. And don't swear to the Lord Jesus, if anybody takes that quote and stops from and cuts it off from what I'm about to follow with, I will hunt you down. But we don't need to focus on stopping social injustice in America. For example, me and you, we need to focus on stopping social injustice in the 504 and the 318. And then let that spread to what's next to us. Let that spread to the Baton Rouge and the Jackson, Mississippi, and then to Dallas and Houston. We need to focus on where we're at, where God has placed us, and use those to be the catalyst to reach America, which is the ultimate goal. We can't go out of the gate and just try to fix America. It ain't going to happen. There's too many demographics. There's too many cultures. I'm not able to speak to all 330 million people in the U.S. and explain to them and make them understand why racism is still a thing. But what I can do is try to work in my town, in New Orleans, in Metairie, and Harahan, and Baton Rouge, and Shreveport, Alexandria, Lafourche, everywhere, to try to make the area that I'm placed in impacted and let them know what we can do to fix this and why it needs to be fixed. And that's why I'm hitting on the guys here, because people like Ingram, Jordan, Drew Brees, they've got a stage that I simply don't have for multiple reasons. I might have an influence in certain religious circles, but I'm not a mega preacher. I mean, I'm not Jesse Duplantis down, around the I-10 who millions of people see on TBN. And, man, praise God if he decides to speak out on this. But Ingram is seen by millions. Drew Brees is seen by millions. They have an opportunity to do more than I can currently do. Now, that doesn't mean what me and you are trying to do right here on the show doesn't matter. It definitely matters. This has to happen. This is what starts these things. But they have a perfect opportunity to do so much more than we can, and I want to team up and unify with them so that we can progress this. But, man, just think how – I mean, you've been in the 504 your whole life, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
Can you remember a day – where some form of racial injustice, especially post-Katrina, hasn't existed?
No.
In the 504.
No.
I hate that that's a fact. I hate that I even have to ask that question knowing the answer. But see, that's where we have to work to change. And I think we can do that in our lifetime. I have to believe that. I mean, why would I try a project if I think that it's doomed to fail? I have to believe that it'll happen so that my children and your children can play on the playground, can go to the same school, can study the same religion, can be whatever they want to be in their life as an equal partner, and not just get looked at oddly because they're friends with a black boy, or your son or daughter is friends with a white boy or a white girl. And it's sad, 2016, that still exists. That mentality is still there. But that's what I want to change, and I want the platform that these players have to be used to that. And I understand that's scary, because let me be honest. If Cam Jordan was to come out today and form a march, the first person to be real ticked off with that? Sean Payton.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to say that Sean Payton's racist. But I'm saying that Sean Payton likes to keep things quiet. He doesn't like media. He doesn't like attention away from the game. And that is going to draw attention away from the game. It is. But I think it's worth it. I think it's a sacrifice that has to be made. I mean, that's my personal opinion. People might disagree with me, and I'm okay with that. Players, coaches might disagree with me. But I think the platform that they have, I mean, we have to reach a point where this social injustice is hurting our hearts so much we realize that we have to put ourselves to the side for the greater good of this country, of this state, of our city, of our neighborhoods, of the wards. That has to be more important than who we are, so we have to put that aside no matter who's going to say something or who's going to try to strike out at us. And, I mean, hopefully whoever's listening to this today, tomorrow, in the future, they realize that as well. And I think that's why I go back to that act of solidarity. As long as it's a catalyst, as long as it got the ball moving, I think it's amazing. I think it's great and a perfect example of what this world needs to be. But if it just stays that photo op, if it just becomes that great picture on Twitter and Facebook, it did nothing, I'm upset by it.
Couldn't agree more. Hopefully, with the conversation started with Kaepernick first sitting down, then taking a knee, ending at this point right now with the Saints, showing the act of solidarity. Hopefully, the next step is what you're saying. See, right now, the conversation has started. That's fine. The problem is, and it's what you've alluded to this entire time, it can't stay a conversation. At some point, action has to take place. And it's not just, as you've been saying this entire time, it's not just on the athletes. Yes, they can use their platform, and yes, it's time for them to actually put their money or their effort where their mouths are, and instead of just talking about it. And I understand football season is a very busy time. The guys only get 2 days off for the most part, and then they're right back to work, going through the work. I get it. But they have to start, and we have to start getting out into our own community, trying to promote a better way of doing things, because that's how you change things, and it's what you said this entire time, Rev. It's about changing your part of the world, and hopefully that spreads out and makes a ripple effect. Well, that's what has to be the next step.
Let's throw this out there, because people are going to be shocked. A Reverend not asking for money, but I'm not trying to goad somebody like a Breeze or an Ingram into giving their hard-earned money to this project. Now, if they do, God bless them, because There's probably not very many causes that need it more. I'm not doing this because I think their platform enables them to do more financially as well. I just think that their voice can reach more than I can. And if anybody needs to be reaching people, it's people who kids idolize. I mean, people like Ingram and Breeze and LeBron James and Colin Kaepernick and all these guys. I mean, Pavel Datsyuk in hockey. It doesn't matter what color you are. There's always some kind of sports idol. People idolize these people. I idolized them as a kid growing up. My favorite player was Leroy Glover. I played defensive line. I wanted to be Leroy Glover. I did. I call me Leroy. I wanted to be Leroy Glover. And they have an opportunity to just do some things that others can't. And I think what Mark Ingram said about that display shows his heart. So I believe his heart's in the right place. I keep mentioning his name, but he's been at the center of this for the New Orleans Saints. So I'm going to keep using him. He said, I support Kaepernick and all the other guys, their calls and what they're standing up for. But it's unfortunate that people are taking it the wrong way. And it was just causing division when we're trying to create unity. Coach Payton asked a few of us what we thought of the idea. He asked Dan Quinn about the idea, and they were all for it. I think that's awesome. I think that's a strong statement. And see, from what he's saying from his heart, that's why I support this, because I think that it'll go further. And the reason I think that is because what Colin Kaepernick did got the conversation started, but he is right. And this is going to be hard for my black culture friends, black church friends to hear, but take it from someone who has experienced this from a religious standpoint. If you offend the people that you're trying to reach, they're not going to listen to you. That doesn't make it right. Just because you don't agree with what Colin Kaepernick did doesn't make what he did wrong. His act, I fully support it. But it shut off most people from my culture because for whatever reason, and I said this on Twitter, a lot of evangelical Christians have become more loyal to the flag of America than to the cross of Calvary. That's something we need to work on. But as I said before, that act from last night, that's something that more can get behind. I hate that I have to word it like that because it sounds like a cop-out, but it's not. If you really want to reach people, you have to reach them where they're at. And if you are, especially from the east and the south of the United States, you have been born into, taught, raised, bred, and are a part of some form of systemic racism. You are. You can't avoid it. I'm part of it. You're part of it. That's just the culture that has been created around us. To reach those in that culture, you have to speak to them on their level. I realize there are people like me who see that and are able to hear it on whatever level. But let's be honest, and this is not me boasting, how many people do you really know that have the mindset and paradigm that I do that can just openly see what is being presented before them? Most people have some form of blinder over their eye. They're blinded. They can't see what you're trying to present because they've been taught something different. So the way to get to those people is not to shove your version to them, but to reword your version in a way that they can understand. Not in a way to water it down that they can accept, but in a way that they can understand. And last night, I think that does that. And it's difficult to see it that way if you're not on that side. But as someone coming from that part of the culture who was born in this, I mean, heck, I was born in the hood of my town, only white family, and still grew up in a family in the middle of the hood who was racist. How does that happen? I don't know, but it did. I mean, I still struggle with that with my family and having to talk to them and try to explain these things and them not scoff it off because they simply don't understand. So that's why last night I'm not as upset, because I believe it's something that can be used to reach a different group of people that most people aren't going to reach. And Colin Kaepernick can't reach because Colin Kaepernick's message is what this nation needed, but it's not a message that can be applied to everybody. Does that make any sense?
It does. And my only rebuttal for that, and make no mistake about it, I agree with everything you just said. You can't, it's no different than in any situation. You can't apply the same logic or the same methods to everyone because everyone has a different reaction to no matter what it is that's happening to them. If you're saying it to them, if you're showing it to them, everybody responds different. The problem that I have with that is that there have been more passive-aggressive ways in which a lot of athletes, celebrities have gone about trying to voice their displeasure with some of the social injustices I can't breathe T-shirts that the Miami Heat